South Park. In this episode, Kyle's unlimited platinum Amex saves the economy. Let's get into it.
I got a $100 check from my grandma, and my dad said I need to put it in the bank so it can grow over the years.
We can put that check in a money market mutual fund. Then we'll reinvest the earnings into foreign currency accounts with compounding interest, and it's gone.
This could never happen in real life. When you put your money into a money market mutual fund, it's insured by the FDIC against loss. Why this felt true back then is that this was at the end of 2008. The housing crisis had occurred. Lots of people had taken out loans which were on adjustable rate mortgages. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, the rates readjusted and their mortgage payments went way, way up and they lost their houses. The other thing that I think is really incorrect about this is the mumbo jumbo happens really fast, but all he said is we're taking the money, putting it into a money market mutual fund, and then we'll reinvest the proceeds, the earnings, into something else, which might be risky. If they did that, the principal, the original $100, would still be in a money market mutual fund, would still be insured, and would still be there.
Mom, Dad, how come there's suddenly no money?
I'll tell you what happened, son. See, there's a bunch of idiots out there who weren't happy with what they had. They wanted a bigger house and materialistic things that they didn't even need. People with no money who got loans to buy frivolous things they had no business buying.
That's what a lot of people say. The subprime mortgage crisis, the housing crisis was caused by people living beyond their means, buying homes they couldn't afford. And of course, it's not as simple as that. They wouldn't have been able to buy those homes if bankers and other people, and frankly, the federal government hadn't encouraged a ownership society, which made it possible for people who wouldn't have otherwise qualified for loans to get loans.
We're all feeling the economy's vengeance because of materialistic heathens who did stupid things with their money. Do you understand, son?
Austerity, which is where Stan's dad, Randy, is coming from, actually sounds very sensible. It is sensible for an individual who's in debt to stop spending. But on an economy-wide basis, it's a disaster because one person's spending is another person's income, as Ray Dalio has said very well. And the other thing that's different about countries, which is why you can't apply household economics to countries, is that countries can print money. Would any household save if they could print money? I don't think so. And printing money is really the solution. It's called Keynesian economics. The solution to a lot of economic problems is when things are slow, the government steps in and prints money and spends a lot and gets things going again. And when things are going great, the government is supposed to take away the punch bowl, raise interest rates, stop spending, and slow things down. And that's how they can smooth out the business cycle. And it's worked pretty well.
And so why is our economy failing us?
Because the government kept interest rates too low for too long.
That is a great explanation, and we're hearing it right now as well as back then. In fact, since COVID, interest rates have been at zero for a long time, and when there were initial signs of inflation coming, people said that the government should raise rates. Chairman Powell and the Fed refused to raise rates, called inflation transitory, and just tried to keep things going. People look back and say that was a huge error, and maybe it was. There's plenty of people you can blame this on, as we see.
The answer is obvious, my friends. It is the Jews. Covetous Jews who have taken all our money and hoarded it for themselves, hidden all the cash in some secret Jew cave that they built.
There's Cartman blaming the Jews. It's a very ironic, of course, because Cartman's probably Jewish himself. Blaming the Jews is kind of funny, haha, back in 2008 when anti-Semitism was really a fringe idea. But it's incredible how it's come back in the last few years. You know, there's all these code words for Jews we hear in the media: globalists, elitists, George Soros. These are all boogeymen that get trotted out and blamed for bad times. And it's gone back, millennia, because Jews were involved historically in lending, and the Bible did forbid, many Christians from banking and other roles. So this is a pattern that goes back a long way. When people are ignorant, there's no knowing what they'll come up with.
But the fault lies in all of you. You who bought that $300,000 house when you only had $20,000 to put down. You who bought that third car even though only 2 people in your home drive. It is time to stop pointing fingers. Finger pointing gets us nowhere.
Stan's father, Randy, blames excessive spending and excessive consumption for destroying the economy and making the economy angry. And this is the voice of austerity. And actually at the time, austerity was the approach that a lot of governments in Europe especially took, and they never recovered from the recession. They were in very, very long recessions. In the United States, there was a bailout program, the Troubled Asset Relief Program. They took $800 billion and spent it to keep the banks afloat and ultimately to get people spending again. And it did work. And we recovered in the United States from the 2008 recession much faster than Europe did. But the problem here, and the reason it's appealing to most people, is it does sound like it's sensible. If you're in debt, if you're a household, you should save. But again, if everybody does that, it leads to a slowdown and nobody makes any money, and the recession drags on and on and on, which is what happened.
The economy is not a supernatural, all-knowing entity. The economy is just an idea made up by people thousands of years ago.
Here's Kyle explaining what I think is the correct interpretation. The economy is just a collection of all of us together doing what we do to get by. It's not some thing in of itself, it's a concept. And that's all it is. Just like the United States is a concept, you can't look down from space and see the United States. There's no lines on a map, but we collectively think of the United States and it becomes real. And similarly, the economy and dollars, these are all just states of mind. If people are confident that they can do business, that the value of a dollar is stable, then we can all do business together, we can buy and sell, and everything will be fine. But if we're afraid that things are going to get worse, and if we spend $1, we won't earn $1, then we need to save, and then nobody is trading, and the economy goes to hell. And it's harder for everyone to get by. This is his Sermon on the Mount, which is what makes this episode so fun. They managed to overlay religion on top of economics in a way that really points out that it's very poorly understood. A lot of it is based on faith.
It is an American Express Platinum card. It has no spending limit.
Kyle pulls out his American Express Platinum card, which has no spending limit. And of course, people who are trained on austerity are terrified, but he points out it's just a piece of paper. It really is essentially the Federal Reserve in his hand. That's the beauty of the Federal Reserve. All they have to do is push a few buttons and billions of dollars appear that they can use to buy bonds back from banks. And when they take the bonds from the banks, they give the banks cash. And then the banks can take the cash and lend it. And that's how the economy really works. And then when they want to slow things down, they force the banks to buy bonds for cash, taking cash out of the system, and it slows everything down.
It's the Jew. Somehow he got a platinum Amex with no spending limit. What's he doing? He's paying for everyone's debt.
So Kyle resets the debts, basically. He is the Federal Reserve. He gives people, again, confidence that their finances are improved enough that they can go out and do business again and the economy works again. All on the back of his one little platinum American Express card. Really, he is, the Alan Greenspan, the Ben Bernanke, I think it was Ben Bernanke back then, of the episode. Now, what's not in the episode, of course, is that Kyle actually would take on these debts. And because, he's whatever, a fourth grader, a 10-year-old kid, I guess it'd be pretty easy to make American Express swallow the loss and he could move on without consequences. But his mother's obviously concerned. She says he'll be in debt for the rest of his life. That's where all the religious imagery works so well, taking on the sins of others so that they could be redeemed. I think it's like the best economics lesson I've seen in, ever. It really explains that to do business, you have to have some confidence in your ability to pay, your ability to be paid for the work that you're doing. You can't run a business if you think customers won't show up. A business person has to go out and buy inventory, take risk with the belief that there will be customers. Customers themselves have to believe that their jobs are secure, and so on and so on. If any part of the whole system breaks down, people lose confidence, then we have a recession essentially where it breaks down. Again, this is all based on Ray Dalio. Check out my video on margin call. It's also about the 2008 financial crisis. Thanks, and bye.